So there's a number of ways that you can calculate pH and pOH. Remember, pH is the measure of the acidity of a solution, so how much H plus there is in the solution, and pOH is the measure of the basicity, or how much OH minus is in solution. So the two main equations for calculating that uses that direct definition. The pH is the negative log of the concentration of H plus, and the pOH is the negative log of the concentration of OH minus. So they are kind of directly related to the concentration of those two things. There's some other equations too where you can go backwards for those. So if pH is the negative log of the concentration of H plus, well, you can take the concentration of H plus and get that from 10 to the negative pH, and same with the pOH. 10 to the negative pOH is going to get you OH minus concentration. And then you can also take the pH and the pOH, which should equal 14. So if you know what the pH is, you can subtract that from 14 to get the pOH. And then if you need the two concentrations, if you multiply them together, they should equal 1 times 10 to the negative 14th. So you're going to use all of these equations in different conjunction to try to figure out and calculate pH, H plus, etc. So which one you use really depends on what you're given and what you're trying to solve. So the first one says calculate the pH, so that's what you're solving for, of 2.53 times 10 to the negative second molar HCl. Remember, the H is what makes it an acid, so when you have 2.53 times 10 to the negative second molar HCl, that's how much H plus you have. So to calculate the pH, you're simply going to do the negative log of the given concentration, 2.53 times 10 to the negative second. And then the log, remember, is just a button in your calculator. Make sure that you hit it and make sure that you hit the negative before it. And you should get a pH of 1.6. That should just read out right in your calculator. Okay, next we're going to do the pOH. So remember, if you're given the OH minus concentration, which you are here, calculating the pOH is the same as calculating the pH. So the pOH is the negative log of the OH minus concentration, which is 1 times 10 to the negative 7th. Make sure you remember all of those negative signs. Make sure you're using the right button. Make sure you're putting them where they belong. And you should get a pOH of exactly 7 there. So that's just basic calculation of pH and pOH using the negative log. Now we're going to change it up a bit. So it says, what is the H plus concentration of a solution with an OH minus concentration of 1 times 10 to the negative 4th, and what is the pH of this? So here's where you really have to figure out which equation is going to work for you. There is a way to do the H plus concentration with the 10 to the negative pH, but we don't have a pH. So the only way to calculate the H plus concentration with what we're given, which is the concentration of OH minus, you have to use the equation that when you multiply H plus times OH minus, you should get 1 times 10 to the negative 14th. So really, to get H plus, what you're going to do is take the OH minus concentration, which is 1 times 10 to negative 4th, over the 1 times 10 to the negative 14th. Be careful when you plug those into your calculator. Make sure you're using parentheses around both scientific notations. And you should get 1 times 10 to the negative 10th molar. Okay, so that's the first part. Remember, there's some of these are going to have two-part answers. So we've calculated the H plus. The second part is to calculate the pH, but we know that that is just negative log times the concentration of H plus. So we should get a pH of 10. Okay. This one has many steps. It's asking you to calculate a number of things. Sometimes a test or a quiz could ask you to calculate pH and pOH, etc., like this, or it could ask it in a single problem. Just make sure you're calculating each thing individually. So what we're given here is an H plus concentration, and we're asked to calculate a number of things. There could be more than one way to answer these kind of problems correctly, so it's really just the way that works best for you and that you're getting the correct answer. So first it asks you to calculate the OH minus. So we're going to use what we used before, which is H plus, which we have 3 times 10 to the negative 3rd, times OH minus, should equal 1 times 10 to the negative 14th. If we move that around, OH minus should equal 1 times 10 to the negative 14th over 3 times 10 to the negative 3rd. And what we do is we should get 3.33 times 10 to the negative 12th molar. And that's going to be our concentration of OH minus. Second thing it asks for is the pH. Well, remember on the top we're given the H plus concentration. So we're going to do the negative log of the H plus concentration, 3 times 10 to the negative 3rd. And we should get a pH of 2.52. Okay, now for this last one, you actually have a couple options to calculate the pOH. You have the OH minus concentration that you just calculated here, so you could do the negative log of that to get the pOH, or remember that pH plus pOH should equal 14. So if you do the pOH equals 14 minus the pH we just calculated, you should get a pOH of 11.48. Doesn't really matter which one you chose, I just chose that one because I find that easier. Okay, what is the OH minus concentration of a pOH of 8.94? To get the OH here, you only have one option. You can't do the 1 times 10 to the negative 14th because you don't have an H plus concentration. Theoretically, you could work backwards a couple times from pOH to pH, but there's a way easier way to do that, and that is OH minus concentration equals 10 to the negative pOH. So we have pOH of 8.94, so we're going to do 10 to the negative 8.94. Don't forget that negative when you're plugging in. The 10 to the negative button is just the opposite the log. So you do second log, and that's going to give you that button. Don't forget the negative again, and you get 1.15 times 10 to the negative 9th. Now, since this is concentration, you need the molar as your unit. pH does not have a unit. You just leave that. It is unitless, but any concentration is always molar. Okay, and finally, the pH sample of human blood was 7.41, so that's the pH. It's going to ask you to calculate 3 things here: pOH, H plus, and OH minus. Doesn't really matter where you start. I'm going to start with the pOH because that's in the problem. And I'm going to remember pH plus pOH should equal 14. So pOH should equal 14 minus 7.41. And that should give me 6.59. Okay, one down. To get the H plus, I'm going to choose to take the pH, and I'm going to do 10 to the negative pH. So that's going to give me 10 to the negative 7.41. So my H plus concentration is going to be 3.89. times 10 to the negative 8 molar because it's a concentration. And then finally it's asking you for the OH minus concentration. And again, I have a number of options. I can take the H plus and the 1 times 10 to the negative 14th and use that. Or I can take the 10 to the negative pOH. I'm going to use that one. There's no really particular reason why. The H plus times OH minus equals 1 times 10 to the negative 14th would work just as well here, so it's really just a preference. So I'm going to do 10 to the negative 6.59, and I should get 2.57 times 10 to the negative 7th molar. Make sure you practice these. Make sure you get real comfortable with those buttons on the calculator. Make sure you don't forget your negatives. Those are all little places where you can make a mistake.